All praise, honor, and glory be to God. I hope this message honors Jesus, um, and makes sure that all his praise, all the praise and glory goes to him. Because, this week for the last week, it's been weighing heavy on me that I should be maybe making a message on the emergency procedures on how to get through things like depression and suffering, loss of some kind, especially if it's a family member. Because I have some people on YouTube who have come out and said, hey, they've been knee deep in depression, and it was God who pulled them out. And having gone through that in my past, um, as I've shared, actually at the beginning of this year, in my first videos, I think I shared that I've gone through something very serious, and coming out of it, I was able to see in hindsight a different perspective. I got to see my life in a dark place from God's perspective and not so much from my perspective. And what God taught me was when you stop focusing on yourself, you're able to get out. When you start focusing on serving, when you start focusing on Jesus, this is how you get out of these things. And sometimes it's a few emergency procedures, like I don't know if anybody else talks about how to get out of it or how to do it, but the way I did it was always having the Bible app playing, making sure that, because it was like the air I breathed, having a few Bible verses that are memorized. Sometimes you're in such a dark place you can't even remember to write them down, but all you ask for is just randomly, a Bible verse will come up, that he will never desert you, that nobody can snatch you out of his hand. And sometimes just knowing those verses and repeating them over and over and over again. And sometimes you're in such a dark place, it's repeated, daily for days, weeks, until you finally change the verse again to something different. So cleaving to his word, like a like a machine that helps you breathe. Um, that's how I got through very dark times. The other thing is, outside of the repeating the Bible verses over and over again, meditating upon his word, focusing on getting deeper into understanding his word, praying, praising is another great way. Outside of praying, because I understand that sometimes we're in depression, the prayers don't always come out. You don't always sound like Job. You don't always sound like, he says here, I'll try to quote him verbatim here. It says, and he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. You don't always sound like that. I understand that when you're in the middle of being in a deep, dark place, that type of grace doesn't always come out, But I find that every time I'm in those places, if I forget about focusing on how I feel, I think we call it like a pity party or whatnot, and I'm not degrading depression. What I'm saying is sometimes there's a little bit of a lack of gratitude that happens, and I think if you're in a dark place, that would require a little bit of light. When somebody comes up to you and says, you should be more grateful, it doesn't always ring as true as when you're in a healthy place mentally. Usually it feels like somebody's mocking you and makes you feel more depressed, So I find there's worshiping God, just playing the music, even if you're not participating. Sometimes just playing the music and meditating upon coming in front of Jesus, presenting yourself before him. And I've said this in many videos in the past videos, that I do a visualization. How some people, they meditate and they free their mind of all thoughts. I don't agree with that. I think that's the last thing I want to do, because I don't want to empty my mind of the Word of God. I don't want to empty my mind of the truth of Christ. I don't want to let any type of oppression in. So outside of giving, making sure that the one who has the key of David, something I couldn't give him, but he has, who is Christ, has the key of David. He can lock my mind. He can open my mind. He has the full key. So I allow him, and I say, you have permission, Yeshua, to go in there and disinfect anything that's bringing this darkness. Disinfect it, Yeshua. These are some of the things I pray. Go in there and free my mind of this bondage in Yeshua's precious name. Break these chains in Yeshua's precious name. Listening to that worship music and allowing yourself to think about that day that you're going to have to present yourself before Christ. I don't know. Sometimes I listen to, I don't know what everybody else is doing. I don't know if they're counting their mansions in heaven, or if they're counting what their rank is going to be, or what number you're going to get if you're one of the 144,000. But I'm not counting that. I'm counting how long my hug's going to be. Sometimes you just have to think about, well, anyway, if you have children, you know everything about them. You might even know some of their flaws. You can't read the heart the way God can, of course, but you would do anything to protect them. And we're evil, and we know how to do that. But to have a God that can read our hearts and our minds at any moment, listening to MacArthur's last sermon, I'll place below, Jesus knew Judas's heart. I'm sure Judas's heart was whispering all kinds of things to him. He could read his heart like a book. And yet he didn't treat him any differently. And, MacArthur made a great point with what is the difference between Peter and Judas. They both denied him at some point. At some point, they both said they didn't know him and acted like they didn't. And they were both predicted to act in that way. But the difference between Judas and Peter was Judas was sorry, but he never repented, and he didn't love Jesus. He didn't truly care about Jesus' opinion of him. He didn't really love Jesus. Whereas when Peter saw Jesus, after betraying him and remembering Jesus had actually predicted that, and seeing Jesus' eyes, he was broken because he realized, what he had done. And MacArthur, it's a great sermon. I think you should listen to it. It's really good. He goes on about how the opportunity that Judas had. He had the truth. He spent 3 years with the living, walking, breathing truth that he tried to sell off for 33 shekels or whatever money they were using back in the day, which is the price of a slave back in the day. And so that is the difference between Jesus and between the way people view Jesus, the way Peter and Judas viewed Jesus. That was the difference. And I did notice when I was in depression, having those moments of leave this life behind for a second. At the end of all this, the person who's going to meet you at the end of this tunnel, it's not going to be your mom, it's not going to be your dad, it's not going to be your children. It's going to be the one who stepped over that grave and made sure there was a bridge so you could walk over too. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about what got me out. Again, trying to figure out how I could submit more to Christ, how I could change my life to be more like Him. Seeing this kind of pile of rubble that we tend to be. How if the light of Jesus Christ is shined upon it, what kind of shadow it would cast. And I don't mean about what other people's opinion of me is or you, but what would Jesus think of us? How would he view our life? If the only person who viewed your life was Christ, what would he see? How would he view that? You know, if you're playing, I mean, for all players on the stage, we're all just characters playing something out here, and he's the only audience member. He's the only person watching. Uh, it's really hard to stay, at least for me, it was hard to stay depressed, thinking what this would look like in hindsight. You know, as bad, sad moments happen, and I want to be like Job. I want to get stronger with time. This last week we lost a family member, my father-in-law, and he died in his sleep. And as we mourned, I kept repeating that we shouldn't mourn the way the world mourns. That people are very focused on, how the world is so different because that person's not here anymore. But I found, spiritually, I started focusing on, thank God for the one who did come here to make sure that that person's soul is never lost and is always on the other side waiting to reunite with us. And so all of a sudden, my love for Christ became all the stronger, and the mourning became less, became less painful. Because we get stuck on how we're stuck in this dark world without that person, and how our world's all the more darker, forgetting that there is a real light at the end of this, and sometimes what death does is it's kind of selfish, when we mourn, it's a little selfish. It's like that person's reminding us that we too will die, and so we cry because I think we're mourning our own life and our own, and what our life isn't or what it might not be or something. It doesn't really seem very, I don't know, sometimes it's not sincere. Sometimes it feels like this is about me, because that person's not here to hear my tears. They're not here to feel my pain. So, for what I'm sure of, eventually, however time works for God, because I believe in the parallel universe stuff, I really do. They could be there now, with God, or spiritually in God's hands. However the mystery works, I know they're with God. So, well, I'm trying to work up to being a bit more stronger spiritually, in that sense, where I don't want the world to break me. I want to be able to say, praise be to the Lord who giveth and taketh away, without having that selfish what if thought. What if this was different? What if that was different? Well, he's in control, and it wasn't meant to be any different than what it is. And that's all we need to know. So there's this type of art. It's called shadow art. And, I guess at the end of the day, if there is a silhouette left behind, I would hope that it is, not for anybody else to view. I want there to be a museum and different parts of my life to have casted this beautiful light of Christ upon, and only for Jesus. If it brings other people to Christ to see the silhouette of this pile of junk that leaves the image of Christ behind, then great. But it's got to honor him, and it's got to glorify him. And I have to completely disappear. If somebody walked into my house and I weren't here, would they see Christ anywhere and everywhere? Or would they be confused? I have menorahs in my house. I'm sure they're confused if they walked into my house without a lot of explanation or not knowing me. But, I don't know. I kind of wanted this to be a little bit more of a better format, but I think I'm tired. I just came off a trip, so I was traveling to see family for the weekend, and I got that bad news over the weekend, and that life loss is reminding me life is short, life is unpredictable. He wasn't old, and at the end of the day, glory and honor to Christ that this isn't the end. So, this is Linda of Christ is King forever. May God be with you.